I want to share some of this book, Driving the Green Book, with y'all because some of the things that I am reading right now is completely relevant to what is going on today. I'm going to read some of this. I'm going to put the words up on the screen so you can see it too. And then you guys can discuss. I'm sure you will probably understand what I am going for as I'm reading this book. So this part is talking about the black people that were able to get jobs up in Detroit because of the auto factory work. So let's get into this a little bit. Henry Ford in the 1920s and 30s partnered with 5 black institutions in the city of Detroit to help recruit African Americans to take some of those jobs at the Ford factory, which, even with all of the faults of Henry Ford, places him as a progressive in comparison to the other factory owners who were not hiring African Americans at all or only hiring African Americans as a strikebreaker. So Henry Ford, who once practiced the same things, has now moved much further in hiring African Americans than any other factory owners and now begins paying them an equal wage to the white workers, which is $5 a day, which would be about $85 today. This is double what most factories are paying in the city of Detroit at that time. So now you have African Americans coming from Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, North Carolina, and South Carolina and Georgia, who were previously working as tenant farmers and sharecroppers in some form of low-skill labor and not really making that much money, or in perpetual debt as a sharecropper on a plantation. Now they're coming to the city of Detroit and making a living wage, making more money than they've ever made as sharecroppers in Mississippi. Still, Ford and other automakers in Detroit continue to apply racially discriminatory policies. Please forgive me. Chike, a professor of African American Studies and community activist in Detroit, told Janae and me that most black workers were automatically assigned the worst jobs in auto factories. For example, in the foundry where iron and steel castings were produced and where the work was notoriously hot and dirty and dangerous, Chike gave us a fuller picture of the lives of black workers. And they oftentimes were in the most deplorable communities. There was also a pecking order. Before there was a mass influx of African Americans, there were Polish people, people from the Middle East, and these people were considered on the lower rung in society. As black people came, because some of those people could easily fit into the white construct, they moved up, so to speak, and black people assumed the position on the lower rung. Furthermore, Chike pointed out that some black workers found out that these famously $5 per day salary didn't apply to them. Instead, these workers found themselves receiving paychecks of around $3.50 per day from Ford. When they complained, they were told that if they demonstrated themselves to be of upright moral character, they could arrange a special account in their neighborhood church through which an additional pay might be received. Despite these harsh realities, most blacks who made the journey north considered themselves better off than they had been. Many now had steady jobs with regular paycheck and a living wage. They could accumulate savings. They could begin enjoying the benefits of their increased socioeconomic status, one of which was economic freedom to be entrepreneurial, as Jordan made clear. So what did black people do with that money? They did 2 things. First, they became customers of businesses they never would have been able to be customers before. Many of these businesses, of course, are African American owned businesses in the Paradise Valley district of Detroit. The second thing, they're using the money they have now, their disposable income, to start businesses. So yes, they may work at an auto factory on the assembly line, but they are starting their own businesses. What they really are, they're blacksmiths, seamstresses, cobblers, cooks, or they have some other skill, and now they have money to finance this other business that they could be a part of. Also, these people were able to send money back home. They were able to help support people back home. Now, I was saying, what does this sound like? What kind of migratory patterns does this sound like? Does it sound like where these people are getting the worst jobs, but they're still going to these jobs because where they were before is still better than where they are now? Think about it. When there is discrimination, where there's bigotry, where there is any kind of deplorable situations, people will move from those situations by any means, traveling hundreds of miles to get to those better places, even if the comparable pay is bad. If it was still worse somewhere else, they'll move. I'm sure you guys could catch where I'm going with it, but the history informs the present. History is repeating itself on many different levels. Y'all go ahead and jump in the comment section. I will be reading more of this book later.